Around a month ago, I made a video about just checking in on my backhand distance. It wasn't meant to really be all that much. I just wanted to see how far I was throwing, see if I could finally get to that elusive 500 foot mark. Spoiler alert, I kind of didn't, but I'm still working on it. And I thought that was just going to be it. I was mostly going to work on putting and strength training in the off season. I wasn't really worried about distance or backhand form all that much at the time. However, I edited that video, I watched it through, and I was like, man, I got to work on my backhand. Like I can't go the whole off season without doing something about this. So for the past month, my main focus has been working on my backhand, trying to iron out all those little details that I thought were wrong. So today I'm going to give you 7 tips, 7 things that I've worked on in this off season that have fixed my backhand. So hopefully if you've been following along, you've got all the things I was doing right before, and you can continue to learn as I continue to learn and get some more pointers from me here. Real quick though, before we get to the rest of the video, I want to make, I guess, a little announcement. I'm going to be with OTB again for the 2024 season. From now until March, we're going to be using code OFFSEASON for 10% off of your order at checkout. Big thanks to everyone that used my code throughout the 2023 season. A ton of you guys used it, way more than I would have thought. It's been super helpful to me, and it's super helpful to OTB. So all in all, thank you so much, and continue to support me using my code. And from March onward, we're gonna have a new code every month, so just keep coming back to the videos, you'll keep getting codes, keep getting discounts, everyone's happy. All right, number 1, the biggest thing that I found that was wrong with my backhand, and I think this is probably the hardest thing for me to unlearn because it just feels so natural to throw this way, is leaning backwards. So when I would reach back, I would kind of start my run up like cocked back a little bit with my right shoulder up, and I would reach back by like doing this motion, right? So I was bringing my back shoulder back, doing this, like that was kind of how I reached back. When in reality, you just want it to be a rotation and a straight back and forth motion, not this sort of like semi-rounded leaning back thing. And I also, it probably comes from 1, I learned on a course that was uphill a lot, and 2, I played Ultimate where you had to like kind of lean back and throw the disc up to get it to go far because lids don't go that far. But with a disc golf disc, you don't need to lean back and put your disc way nose up. And because I was leaning back, I was, instead of fixing my leaning back, I was compensating for that by kind of coming over the disc a little bit and getting it nose down, which was good, but the leaning back made it so I couldn't really generate power because my whole body was this way, my hips were like this. It was putting a ton of strain on my hips and my low back, which was not good, and I just wasn't getting as much power. Being in a neutral position with your shoulders even, I try to think of my shoulders even, or I even think to get my right shoulder forward a little bit, because even though you're not supposed to do that really, that's kind of the cue that stops me from leaning back a little bit. So if you're having trouble leaning back, maybe try to think like going in the other direction to fix it, and then find out kind of where you start to fall, where it starts to look normal. Obviously take videos, but you want to get to the point where your reach back is all rotation and not leaning, right? I was starting my run up by doing this. See, I had my elbow up, my shoulder up, I was leaning back, and you want to start your run up right in this position. I'm not doing this. I'm not starting like this. Second thing, and this is something I've actually talked about before a little bit, but I think I misunderstood sort of the importance of a very specific aspect of this, and it's gonna be with the reach back. And the tip is to make sure you fully coil. Now, I didn't really use that term very much, but I have been watching a little bit of overthrows videos, which they talk about a little bit. And something that's really important to me is when you do coil, and when they say coil, they mean this reach back position where the disc is all the way back, you're getting ready to explode forward, but you haven't started accelerating the disc yet. And for me, I think of my chest pointing backwards and my body open, right? I'm not closed off like this and starting to rotate. My body's open. My shoulders are both facing the direction the disc is in. What I would do is I would get to my full reach back like I'm supposed to, but before I got to my reach back, this arm would start coming over and I would start to rotate. So if you watch old videos of me throwing in slow-mo, I would basically get to my reach back and then my shoulders would start to rotate before I got fully to the reach back, and then my coil would be like this, where what you want is you want to get to that reach back and you want your coil to be like this, open, and then as soon as you hit that point, your body's totally open and you can pull everything in together. You have this nice controlled explosive power pulling through, as opposed to this sort of like early pull through rounded bullcrap. All right, number 3, this is the most important thing for getting snap on the disc. I know this is a controversial topic. Does snap matter? It doesn't matter. It does matter. Well, snap is this, snap is that. Well, snap is just the sound that it makes. You know, you can throw far without snap. this is all true, but I was throwing and I was getting no snap ever. And I was like, I could throw pretty far. Like, I'm not getting snap. It must not mean that much. I think I was wrong. I think snap does have a place in the discussion for how to throw well in disc golf. It doesn't necessarily mean all that much. Some people, maybe you have kind of dry hands and you just don't make as much of a noise. But there is kind of like a snap that you can feel when you're throwing with the right grip with a lot of power. My problem was I would hold the disc basically with my thumb on top like this, and then what ended up happening is the grip under the disc was basically these 3 fingers. So if you can see how I'm holding the disc right now, my thumb and pointer finger don't even need to be on the disc for me to have control of it. Like, I can move it around as much as I want. My entire power grip was the palm of my hand on top of the disc and my 3 fingers under it. And then this finger would kind of just come down and hang out, which probably comes from learning to throw the disc with your finger on the front. That's probably how I learned to throw a Frisbee. And then sort of my thumb just chilling up here, not really doing anything. And what I noticed happening, the reason I figured this out is because when I reached back, right, I didn't have it like this, but it was basically the same thing. It was like my finger was on the front. It was doing just as much as being on the front. When I reached back, I do what pretty much everyone does when they throw, is I loosen my grip up a little bit and then tighten it. But because my thumb wasn't doing anything and it didn't need to stabilize the disc, I noticed my thumb was coming off the disc, and then it wasn't as extreme as this, but it was kind of lifting up a little bit and then coming back onto the disc. And I could feel that I didn't really have good control of the disc. And it's really important that you have control, because 1, you keep everything straight and controlled, you get way more power. And 2, the way I was holding it, the disc, instead of ripping off of like a very concentrated point of my thumb and pointer finger, I kind of had this like baby, like soft release coming off of my palm and 3 fingers. And I could feel it. My fingers would start to hurt because they were doing a lot of the work, and it wasn't really snapping out of my hand. What I instead switched to is I stopped relying on sort of the disc sitting under my palm like this to have power. I brought my fingers way under, and I think the start of my grip is my finger getting under the disc and then my thumb coming up on top. And then now, instead of holding it like this with all the contact is here, right? That is all the contact that I care about. The rest just kind of comes in and helps. But this is all I need. And notice, if I reach back and let go with my thumb, the disc falls out of my hand. So that eliminates the problem of the thumb coming off of the disc, losing that power. And now, when I throw, the disc is snapping out of my hands. That snapping sound happens because of that. I don't think I'm nearly as loud as some crazy power throwers, but I'm hearing it now and feeling it as well. And I can feel the disc really exploding out of my hand in a way it hadn't before. Number 4 is gonna do with the plant leg. And it's pretty simple. You wanna keep your plant leg straight for the most part. Now, it's okay if there's a little bit of a bend, okay? So when you plant your plant leg, there's probably gonna be some bend, and when you come through, you want there to be that brace. But what I noticed is I was planting my foot, and it was super bent like this, and it's because I was leaned back and reaching too far with my plant leg, and so I couldn't really rotate like this, because if I rotate like this, once my leg goes straight, my foot's coming way off the ground because I'm way too reached out. I would have to like really stretch my like inner thigh to get everything together. So what I have to do is bring this in, get my leg flat, and now I can rotate on that really rigid plant leg and absorb all of that power. And that's gonna help having flexibility in your hips, having flexibility in your hamstrings, having strong quads, strong knees, strong glutes. All of these are gonna be important for getting all of this to be able to go into that rigid plant leg and not bending it and doing this kind of hips forward, not rigid, loosey-goosey, bent plant leg, which is what I would do a lot. And it would also make my plant foot not really want to have a strong point to rotate on. It would kind of move a lot, which meant I was losing a lot of power to movement in my leg. If you try and plant on ice and your foot slips, you're losing all of your power. Same thing if your leg is bent and you can't rotate on one single point, you're gonna lose power that way. So making sure that you make a small enough step so that everything can stay rigid and straight and have one axis to rotate on is very important. Okay, number 5 is I just learned this one. This is one that I just figured out, and I don't really see a ton of people talk about it, but it has been hugely helpful in getting more power and feeling a lot more controlled in my form, and also allowing my reach back to kind of be straight and controlled in the way that I want it to. So the cue that I'm gonna use here is leaning over the disc, but it's kind of more than that. So I'm gonna think leaning over the disc like this. This is kind of the position I'm gonna think of, but really what you're doing is you're getting in an athletic position, and two, you're getting the disc away from your hips. And because the disc is away from your hips, you have all this room to reach back when you rotate. If I'm totally upright in the way that I throw and I try to rotate, I cannot get the disc to go straight back unless I keep my elbow tucked to my body entirely. And if you watch most people throw, especially high-level pros, people who know what they're doing, their arm is nowhere near their body. It's way out here. But if I'm not leaning over the disc, in order to rotate, I have to have this sort of rounded, like, it's not natural to reach back straight like that. However, if I bring my hips back and get over the disc, now it has all this room out here, and I can reach back and rotate without having to round my body at all. And although I used a cue to try and not round my body, it always ended up being a thing that I did because I wasn't putting myself in this athletic position where I could get that full reach back without having to round. So just having this upright position that I always had always forced that rounding because I couldn't do the reach back without keeping the disc away from my body, and it just felt unnatural to do a reach back like this, right? It's just not how you reach back. But if you're like this, you're leaned over the disc. Watch Casey White throw, Anthony Barella, Simon Lizotte, Paul Macbeth. Literally watch any good thrower. They're all in this position where their hips are super far away from the disc and they have all this room to reach back. I think that that is one of the more important things for an elite thrower to really generate power. I'm gonna breeze through the last two because they're not super important, but they're things that I am trying to focus on right now, so I thought I would include them. So number 6 is gonna be the off arm. Really all you wanna do is just, the most important thing is that the off arm is straight and tight to your body when you are swinging through. It just keeps everything really clean, really nice and tight to your body. You get way faster rotation that way. It's not in the way. It's not creating any drag for you. And it's something that's probably not that important, right? If my arm is like this and I rotate through, like, does it matter if it's this or this? Probably not, but I am trying to get into the habit of keeping it down to the side here because it just makes it easier for me to rotate. It feels a lot more athletic. It's just kind of a bad habit that I'm trying to fix. The second thing with the off arm is something that I would do is bring my arm way out here and then pull it in, kind of. I can't really recreate it, but my arm would come way out. Some people kind of do that. I'm more trying to keep things compact and simple. I'm not trying to do all this weird, crazy stuff out here. So I'm not coming across my body. I'm just kind of bringing the arm. As I rotate my body, I'm not rotating my arm either. I'm just lifting it up like this. Like my arm is literally just doing this. So as I reach back, I'm just trying to do this. Right? My arm's out here. It's creating this force coming in, a little bit more rotation, but it's not like this, right? That is too much. It's just reaching back and doing this, right? Reach back like that and then in. And then when I'm pulling forward, when I'm rotating into the power pocket, I'm just thinking, bring this in. And then just straight into the 7th point. The 7th thing is your off leg. So something I didn't really think about a whole lot, and I'm still working on it. If you pay attention to your off leg, a lot of people do this when they throw. They'll do everything right, they'll plant, they'll get everything, their arm's gonna come in, and then they'll rotate and their leg will stop and drag behind them. And you're literally just losing rotational power by doing this, and you're creating this whole mass hanging off of you, stopping you from rotating. So what you want to do is just get your back leg off the ground when you rotate through. And I'm even noticing I'm doing the leaning back thing while doing this. You want to get your back leg off the ground when you rotate through so you can pivot on that one point and you don't have this point back here dragging you behind. So those are my 7 points that I've been working on. Again, I'm not perfect. I figured all of these out within the last month. I'm still working on them, but they're all for sure things that I just absolutely have to incorporate into my form. I've noticed that pretty much every high-level pro does this to an extent. It's really hard to figure out these small things. I had to ask some people for some help to figure out some of these things because I just have watched my form so many times, and sometimes it's just hard to see after a while. But now that I've started to incorporate some of these, I feel a lot more confident, and I'm really trying to put in the effort to do all of these as perfectly as I can. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope this helped. It's getting nice out here. It's not gonna be this warm for the next whole month, but it's starting to get nice out, all right? So I'll see you next time. Hopefully that's soon. Peace.